Welcome to the Infinite Life podcast. And this week we have a very special guest with us, and her name is Brenda Asterino. Brenda, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Katische. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Now, Brenda and I had a chat because she left me a message. She's one of the brave souls. There's only been a few who have so far contacted me and left me a message on the podcast recorder. And you will have heard Brenda's voice leaving a message about a past life experience that she had as a result of some horrible nightmares that she had in a couple of episodes ago. So I think it was around... not quite sure the exact episode number from the top of my head right now, but you can go back and you will see and listen to Brenda's voice. So thank you, Brenda, for being brave and leaving me a message on the podcast recorder. I know it can be confronting to leave a message on a microphone to somebody out there somewhere in the internet, but I appreciate your bravery. The whole point of this podcast is to help others consider the notion that their soul is eternal, and to consider that we do get dreams and messages as well as from participating in past life regression. So you can get insights and breakthroughs that help you in your everyday life through all parts and all facets of your life if you're open to messages that you receive and can be given. So Brenda, you've got quite an interesting background, and I'll let you put it in your own voice, but on your profile it says that you've had many years of training in energy work and body work. You've been involved in mystery school organizations, you've been an educator, and you're also a poet as well.
Yes, I'm very grateful for the many facets of my life. Yes.
Beautiful. And tell us a little bit about what drew you to poetry.
I've always been involved in poetry. When my father passed away and we were going through things like where his jewelry was and stuff, there was a poem I had written. I must have been 6 or 7 years old. So I've just always been into poetry. I've always admired and liked rhyming. I do less rhyming now than I used to. I tried different forms of poetry, but it seems like a intuitive way to bring out your feelings as well as your thoughts, and to find patterns within them. Sometimes I even get a rhythm and a beat with the words, which is kind of cool. So it's just something that's always been a part of me.
And do you find, for say a comparison, that you go into a meditative-like stance, a trance-like stance when you're actually writing your poetry?
I write better poetry if I don't like to call it a trance because people kind of associate that with woo or being out of control or something. Sure. Mm-hmm. But I usually say I'm accessing my right brain. Okay, I'm letting go of the judgment stuff, mm-hmm. of the stuff that makes you be detailed and like accounting type mode. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. So okay. I let go.
You let go, yeah.
Yeah.
And do you find that you get a sense that you are like connecting with your inner spirit, your higher self, the source? What words would you use to describe?
I think that describes it very well, because sometimes I don't know what I've written as to what it means. It takes me a while to work through it. And sometimes what comes out, or I find patterns in subsequent poems or poems over many years that reveal more of me to me and kind of help me understand my journey.
I think that there's a lot of modern day Instagram poets, and what I find interesting about them is that they share very freely the emotions that they are going through, and which is why they resonate with so many people. And when you look back across their poetry over time, you can see the emotional patterns that they have gone through, because their words have very clearly and sharply focused those emotions onto a page so that they resonate with you if you're going through that same sort of situation and you're like, I can feel that, I understand that, that's not just you going through that, that's me going through that as well. It's like a connection of oneness.
Yes, definitely. There's a universality, however I would pronounce that better, of humanity, and we're all connected. That's how it seems to me. I'm not a teacher of any of this. I don't have a curriculum or anything, but it seems like I've felt and journeyed through patterns in my life that tell me that oneness is a healthy place to be.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. And this poem that you wrote that you found after your father died, was your father a poet as well? Like, was there any connection that way, or no?
No, but he seemed to be very proud of me for either because I did it or because he would have liked to have done it. My father was tone deaf, so he had trouble being on a functional level with music, but he appreciated what he was told was good music.
Okay, yep.
Yes. So it's kind of like that. I think he appreciated that I was producing art. And I know from friends of his who were artists in the canvas world that he appreciated what they produced. He was first generation Italian American.
Okay.
And I suspect that art is related to freedom. So I suspect that that's a part of it too.
Yes. Producing art is very freeing, as well as viewing art, because I mean, I find when you connect with an artist who's expressed themselves in their artwork rather than producing what they think they should produce, it is like a direct connection to them, because you feel an emotional, visceral reaction to whatever piece of art they have created, irrespective of the media.
So I want to take this a little bit different direction, because truth and justice have always been important to me. And I think any expression of art is about truth. And you can't have justice without truth. And kind of what I was getting to with my comments about my father and art also involves if your parents were escaping a country where freedoms were being lost, most of the time art and intellectuals, freedom of speech, freedom of expression are the first things to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure. And I guess most of us, well, sorry, I'll put it for me, not I don't claim to represent anybody else, but so I live in Australia, and we are pretty much have had a lot of freedoms. You know, there are people in any country and nation of all different backgrounds that don't have freedoms, but for somebody like me, I have had a lot of freedom. Probably the most freedom that anybody in the world would have if you wanted to compare my life with other people at the same time in history all around life. So it's not until you have that freedom taken away from you that I think you could really appreciate the beauty of the freedom that is gained and given by being allowed to express yourself.
And I think that also takes us into spirituality, because through those freedom of expressions, that's how I connect more to my spirituality. And over my lifetime, I've come to hold the belief that truth and justice is supposed to be on a spiritual level. It's about sacredness. And and that connects with spirituality too. Yeah.
Okay. And are there any sorts of experiences that you've had that have really clarified that for you? Like how has that been that you've come to know that?
In my supporting my cousins who did genealogical research, and then being sure that we had lineages that were not definitely found in the genealogical research, but in pursuing it and then finding that it was true, some part of me was telling me to keep looking. Some part of me was telling me it's true. I do have that lineage in my background. And I guess that was my truth that I kept expressing. It took 70 years to find out, but some part of that truth in me kept me reaching for that. And I kind of feel like that's a connection to both my spirituality and my lineage.
You did leave part of a hint about that on the podcast recorded message, and I was wondering because my understanding is that we carry genetic codes and memories through our DNA from our ancestors, but also that we choose which family to incarnate into, and so you do that for a very specific reason. So if you very specifically chose your family and this lineage that needed to be discovered over a very, very long time, 70 years of research and following that trust and that intuition, what insight did it give to you? Like, what was the message? Why did you need to spend all this time looking? Because obviously it was very important for your soul. So what was that message?
I can see a couple of messages. At first, I thought it was, and I'm relating it to other similar events in my life. At first, I thought it was to prepare me for the times that we're in now, where the world is in this big upheaval and very much divisive, and we're unsure and unstable of what's next. Another part is it gave me strength. It let me know that on both sides of my family, I have people who were persecuted, and probably a lot of us do, and we don't know it. But and those people were survivors. So I have people who survived long enough, and I believe these are more likely genetic memories. They survived long enough to produce many generations down me. So that's a lot of strength. That's a great deal of survival instinct, the ability to keep on trucking on. And there's something really that makes me feel good to know that I have this strength in my background. It's like I don't have to doubt that it's there and that it's in my family. So that is that's a piece of security that's inside of me.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Which
That
is,
makes,
it's important, isn't it? Because we're so used to reaching out to others for strength.
and having others tell us what we need to think or feel. I mean, marketing does that for us all the time. So it's nice to stand in your own power, stand in your
Absolutely.
own thoughts,
Hmm.
stand in what you think is right, and go forward with it. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a great feeling that you can access and tap into that. So you have your own inner wisdom plus your ancestral wisdom at any one time if you need that strength and courage. Is that what you're
Yes.
saying?
Yes. Yes.
And now, Brenda, there's two questions I want to ask you, so we can see which one you want to answer first or both. Somebody who doesn't know you at all, Brenda, sees you on screen right now. For those who are listening to this on the podcast, you can have a look over at YouTube and watch this video. You look like a pretty ordinary, normal person to me. Tell us about what it is that in your journey that has needed you or required you to tap into that strength. Why did you feel like your soul needed you to access that ancestral wisdom to help you? What has happened in your past that was a challenge that you had to overcome?
I think that's a really good question. And I think I can answer it on multiple levels.
Okay.
Well, I'm a woman.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. Women have, it seems to me that women have the challenge, and it's now. We have to meet that challenge to stand in our own power.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, I grew up realizing that some people loved my family and some people hated my family. And I thought, yeah, and that's mostly on my father's side. And I thought it was because I grew up Italian American. And so I thought it was the Italian stuff. And I didn't care because I don't know, I had so many cousins, I had so much love that, I didn't care. But as I got older, I had experiences that made me realize I am very multi-ethnic in my background. And that led me, that and some multiple health conditions in the family led me to do the DNA tests. And I found out that I'm extremely multi-ethnic, and that some people, I guess people who want to be prejudiced against others, they know the phenotypical signs to look for. So I have shovel teeth, which indicates a certain kind of ethnic background.
Okay.
And I hadn't been married very long. I'd had a child a couple of years. This was a couple of years into the marriage. I needed dental work, like lots of women need after they've had a child. So I went to a dentist. We were living in a different part of the state away from all my relatives. I just picked a dentist that was close. And I went in, and I thought accidentally hit my gum when he was drilling for a filling to make a filling. I went back to him, and it wasn't, I feel very naive. I went back to him for the follow-up and realized then that he had meant to do that. And here I am in this chair with this very Anglo man, intense. And I can tell that it's like he's trying to build up the will, and he's breaking out in a sweat, and he drills directly into my gum. He does not want me in his chair. He does not want me for a customer. He wants me out of his office.
Wow.
Because he had labeled me because of my teeth. I haven't run that into that. It's funny because when I realized what was going on and he wanted me out of his, and I said something and he validated that, so I knew what was really going on. It's funny because it bothered me that he would hate me for the kind of teeth I have, for a characteristic phenotype of teeth that I have. At the same time, when I reflected back on it, I could see how hard he was working up to do this, like he really didn't want to do it, but he forced himself to do it to drive me from his office. So that level of hatred, and I had never experienced that cultish type of thinking before. And over the years, I would have similar experiences, not to that degree of pain, but where people would turn away because they would see some phenotypically thing. So on both sides of the family, from the research in the DNA testing, I've had persecution on both sides of my lineage for these kinds of reasons. And I suspect we all have them. Most Americans, or many Americans, it may have changed now that DNA testing is so prevalent, but when I was growing up, many Americans didn't know more than 2 or 3 generations back. Mm-hmm. But I suspect I've developed my own theory. These are my own thoughts, and I don't teach it or anything, that when you grow up in an ethnically persecuted family, that people are hushing you. So if they think they can pass or get to the point where their ethnicity isn't recognized. So if you say something, they hush you. You grow up thinking that people related to what you were doing must be bad because you were hushed. So you learn to hate those people when actually you've got that in your background. It explains the level of racism to me. That's how I explain it to myself. But of course, there's all kinds of reasons for hatred in the world. What it has brought me to at my age is now I'm more outspoken about my different lineages because it's got to stop. It's time for it to be over with. And if I treat it like I treat what I eat for breakfast or what I hang in my closet, that it's just another piece of life and so what, then maybe other people will be easier about proclaiming their backgrounds, and it will become the norm to be multi-ethnic or to have diversity in your background. And maybe some of this stuff will stop because we have so many things coming down the road at us to worry about for our children's future. Let's get over this. Let's get over it.
Yeah, I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm sure you're not the only person, but I'm kind of a bit mind blown that that did happen. But one of the things that I guess one of the things I'm trying to show through all the different interviews and the client sessions that I portray on the podcast is that if you understand that not just at a mental level and a logical level, that we have all lived many times before, and therefore we have all been many different nationalities. We've both been male and female. We have been, every possible combination. When you understand that, not at an intellectual level, but you physically experience that by going through a regression or having a deep dream like you have or whatever, then I think you get this insight. And one of my other podcast guests said about the stupidity of any kind of ethnic or racial discrimination because you have been that before. Yeah. And what I was really, when you were talking about that, what I was really drawn to was the fact that in your dream, right, you said that this was the message that you left on the podcast recorder, that during your divorce you had experienced horrible nightmares of memories of being in a German concentration camp.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is a life of persecution, yeah?
Yes. And I think that whatever makes me connect easily to do the poems, especially when I get downbeats and upbeats and those kinds of things with the poem, I think makes it easier for me to have empathy for the people who are being persecuted in my country right now. And I'm not a wilting flower over things like that. And I don't want to be. I think we need to be strong and know where our backbones are and stand beside each other. And yes, what I do with this life is important. In some ways, I'm a good watcher. Some of my poems are based on my watching what humanity is doing and reflecting that through the poem. And some of the poems are about things I've experienced. But I think we can all be more empathetic with each other if we slow ourselves down and just take time to look and listen. Yeah.
It's coming through very strong to me that, the persecution that you've experienced in your own lifetime right now is very, and it's hard to say this because, you can say, well, that's a very high and lofty thing to say, but, is very specific because it links in with a DNA persecution and then also past life persecution. It's like this lifetime has hard coded you in all aspects to be a voice for it.
That's fine with me. And at my age, I wear out a little easier, but at my age, what do I have to worry about? Nobody's going to take my job away from me. Right. Those kinds of things are less impacting on me. If somebody wants to slander me, well, Yeah. So it's, you reach a point in your life where certain things aren't so important because you don't have to be out there putting yourself out there for other reasons to make a living or whatever. So, yeah.
And you're giving the voice to others as well. So you're expressing your voice of your ancestors, your voice of your past self, as well as the voice of those who are unheard. So that's really powerful. So Brenda, I'll give you a moment to think about it, but is there a poem in the book there that you'd like to read to us that is just one example of perhaps a time where you've been reflecting and watching.
Hmm.
Oh, this is interesting. Your cat's just come in the room and so is mine.
They heard each other. That's what
That's
it
right.
is. I have one here that is called The Long Gaze, and I'm going to change the title to The Longer Gaze and write a memoir of some of my ancient memories and dreams and things. So why don't I read that? Because
Okay, perfect.
it kind of refers to the trance-like state a little bit too, you were talking about. I sit on the beach and look out upon the bay and farther, at rest and still lingering, wondering at the distance, marveling at the vastness, the long gaze. Out beyond the next island goes on for miles, sparking an inspiration that fills my lungs. It takes me to places between the space of this lifetime and others, felt without thought, sensed with scenes and stray feelings within growing awareness. Is all time in the same place? I turn a degree to left or to right, and other worlds await.
That's a perfect one to share. Beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm so pleased you're going to turn that into a book.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it will be good for me too as I sort through them and start putting them together. And because I've lived over 70 years, I can see relationships from 20 years ago to something that's happened now, or that kind of thing, a memory that has come back and the relationship to another memory. And it is more unifying and it's integrating. There's a great sense of integration when you get to that point and feel it as well as get it going intellectually. So, yes.
Absolutely. I think, and that's one of the privileges that I have with my job is that for some of my clients, they come back for multiple goes at different sessions. And what happens is that when they look at multiple lives, they can see all the contrasts. So in this one, I did this, and here, because of that, I then had to go see the other side of it. And then they can see, all of the themes that run through multiple lifetimes, and it gives them great relief to go, right, that is why. And then they can then look that back into their lifetime that they're in right now and say, well, because of that I've just experienced and seen the pattern, I needed to have that relationship issue, or I needed that friend to do that to me. I needed to have that good experience, and then I need to have that bad experience. And suddenly they're like, oh, I'm not insane. I'm perfectly okay.
I think the good and the bad is an important thing because we're in a material world, and I've got some poems about that too. In the material world, things decay and things change, and that's the pattern of life. That's what life is about. And to get over your fear of that seems to be very important too, I think.
And specifically right now, over the last 2 years, we have had a global fear of death, yes, because of our famous virus. And it's the number one thing that people have had to confront is death at a huge scale and grief. And without diminishing their experience, it's brought the whole topic of death to the forefront. And so it is really important to understand and contemplate, how do I cope with that as I get older? And am I stepping into the void of fear around death, or am I allowing myself to perhaps contemplate some other alternatives and reducing the fear for myself? So with that, as you get older, how are you personally dealing with, the transition of your lifetime and the knowledge that at some point, just like me, or at any point it could be over, it could be tomorrow, it could be next week, it could be in 10, 20, 30, 40 years. But have any of your insights, your dreams, your experiences from other lifetimes, can you even identify a moment where you thought, oh, it's okay, I go on, I'm not just Brenda?
Yes, and I've been fortunate to have some mystical-like experiences where I felt loved, like to my cells, down into my cells. And I was married once. After 11 years, I was divorced. I have not remarried. There were a few times I was hoping to, but then I realized that I really wasn't picking men for healthy relationships, and that I probably would not get married again. I probably would not find that person. And I had a couple of dreams and a couple of mystical experiences that made it all right. I remembered a lifetime where I had that, where we cherished each other and loved each other on the level that we think about we want love. And it made it okay if I did not find that person in this lifetime. And the knowing that the spiritual is with me and having those experiences of feeling love to a depth of cellular level, I'm okay. I'm okay with it. Yeah.
It's quite something to experience, isn't it? That cellular level love. It's non-describable.
It is. You're right. It's not easy to describe, and it's not something I can give to anyone else. But I wish it for everyone. And I think we each probably find our own way to get to it. I'm suspecting that some people have it right before they die.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was thinking exactly as you were saying that. I know for certain, because I've walked people through it, that when you follow the light, you do experience that, and then you realize that everything is okay, and you feel the true cellular style love, because I watch it via the other side of the screen, and I can see people's faces as they're like, oh my goodness, like, really, this is it? And it fundamentally, to have that feeling, but for some people it's not their journey to experience that until afterwards. You can feel it in your heart, like I feel it in my heart right now, and I can send out that energy, but you have to be open to be receiving of it,
Right.
And different experiences mean that this might not be the walk around the block that is the time that you're here to receive that or to give that out, and there's nothing wrong with that. I guess that the thing that I want to share through the podcast is that it doesn't matter what journey you're going through this time around. There's nothing wrong with you, and it's all a learning experience. But if you feel like you want to change things, then there are lots of different ways you can reach out, so that you can, with all sorts of ways, receive inspiration and receive that love. And for some people like you, it's through the poetry and being a witness and observing and going into DNA and ancestry and getting the insights and connecting that way. Other people, they have different ways that they do that. Maybe it's through the love of animals, or being an artist, or being a historian, or whatever it is. We all don't have to follow the same path, but we can get similar insights by being unique and honoring our uniqueness.
And the diversity, isn't it wonderful that there's such a diversity of ways that people can get there? I mean, it's like the total of creation wants us to get there and will give us any pathway we choose.
That's right. So, yeah, and I think that's really important, because the thing is that you can't make a wrong decision in life. They're all just choices. And we're so conditioned to chastise or shame or blame ourselves for making wrong decisions. And actually, there is no wrong decision. It's just a decision. You made it. The universe has recalibrated around you to accept that decision because you're a human with free will, and just go and have that adventure. You can change your mind anytime. You know, every time you boil the kettle, you're making a decision, and we have to take the fear out of the decision making and just say, it doesn't matter whether I choose tea or coffee. I'm just going to have a beverage and let be what will be. But we're so taught to overanalyze and over reason, and we get so tense in the decision that we don't allow ourselves the ability to just be with the fact that it's going to be okay. Yeah. Well, Brenda, it's been fabulous. I'm so excited to, you'll have to send me an email and let me know when that book is out. But hold up this book that you've got, so that, and then let us know for the people who are also listening. So it's Pathways Walking Through Creation.
Correct.
And it's on Amazon.
Yes, I don't know where to hold it. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. You can get it through the publisher, which is Sidekick Press. There's a couple of local little stores too, but the main ones are, yeah.
All right. And before we go, do you have one last poem that you'd like to share? As just a lasting, it doesn't have to be related to anything we talked today, just a lasting poem to close the show with.
Give myself a little more light here. This is conversation between Our Lady and our Lord. Sweet Lord, the light cannot be seen without the dark. I can only bring the light to our children by showing the darkness. Beautiful lady, then bring on the darkness. Without truth, there can be no justice. Without light, is there truth? If they cannot see the light, then bring on the darkness. Blessed be my Lord. We are unified for our children. Together we will do this with love. They will need all the support we can give them to survive what they must go through to see the light. Yes, sweet and dearest heart, show our children our compassion. Our compassion will support them to love each and the other. They will learn the power of their own kindness, and the circle will break their hearts open and grow and become a spiral. We'll salute our children with a dance, shall we? Oh yes, my love, with the dance of life.
Oh, perfect. Brilliant. That was exactly the right poem. Thank you so much. Thank you, Brenda, for joining me, and take care, and do let us know when your next book comes out.
Thank you so much. It was great.